All right, guys, welcome to episode 4 of Blood, Sweat, and Wax. Join with me is Roll BJJ, Turnit, and myself for the debut of 2023, back in action with you guys with more UFC. Thank God we have more UFC, period. We've been waiting for a while now.
It's close to too long.
It's way too long. And in this episode for today, we're going to be discussing the latest UFC event with Imavov versus Strickland, along with UFC 283 and our expectations, and maybe some talk about Immaculate as well. So let's go ahead and talk about our last card with Imavov versus Strickland. What are you guys' thoughts with, first off, before the main card, or the main, not the main card, but the main fight, what are your thoughts with Umar, especially with his performance?
I thought it was a big deal. I thought it was a really big deal, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but Umar was already on the radar. His last name, obviously, Nurmagomedov. People that know the sport, they knew this kid was around. I don't think anyone expected him to get a TKO. I didn't. I don't think he did either. So that was interesting. But what really stood out for me, and what I absolutely loved, is when he knocked him out, he went for the follow-up, which is instinctively what everybody trains to do, right? To get the finish or whatever. Right. So I don't blame him for that, but I thought it was really cool. He kind of like cradled him and he felt bad. And then somebody else was like, I was reading this online. They were like, oh, can you imagine a fighter feels bad for knocking somebody out? And I'm like, it's not the knockout that he feels bad about. It's the follow-up shot. And I mean, it wasn't even that bad, but he earned a lot of respect for me. And then in the interview, even, he was kind of trying to be apologetic about it. And I kind of like that. And I've heard a lot of people compare the Dagestanis to like these monks. And all they do is they train. They're pure, like they have this philosophy and stuff. And I don't know, it shows good character, in my opinion. But he made a fan out of me, even more so than before. So I thought it was a big event, and it has a lot of impact because for 2022, I think he's got to be one of the biggest rookie names. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but yeah,
I totally agree with
that. Jake, what are your thoughts?
I was thoroughly impressed. I did not see him knocking out a guy like Barcelos of anybody. Like I actually had him in a parlay. I think I had him by submission, actually, because I predicted that he would do the old Khabib, takedown to what is it, Dagestani handcuff, that figure 4 on the knees, end up taking the back somehow off a scramble and rear naked choking Barcelos. But yeah, I did not see a knockout coming from him. So yeah, I was seriously impressed by his performance. I thought it was awesome. So yeah, he made a bigger fan out of me for sure. I already had a lot of faith in Umar with his wrestling abilities, and he's a cousin of Khabib Nurmagomedov, so we can expect him to probably go on a reign, similar to Khabib, and last long in the sport. I'm excited to see what comes from him. I see him climbing to the top. I would like to see him and Yanez fight eventually.
Both of you bring up a good point about Umar. He's a great prospect. I do see him actually going up to even a title fight and potentially becoming the bantamweight champion. But what gets to me about this guy is that he doesn't realize the power he has in his hands. I don't think he's in the right type of camp to actually utilize it to its fullest potential. What I mean by that is that he read what Brony was going to be doing with that left knee. He threw in that left hook because he saw that sort of opening. But we haven't seen that done before. What gets to me about this guy is in his previous fight, his transitions in jiu-jitsu were not as technical as we want it to be, especially at that lighter weight class. I talked this with before with Turnit, is that Islam, Khabib, in the more heavier weight class, if you will, at lightweight, you get to really just rely on your power, rely on not brute strength, but controlled strength, because they have such measured ways of outputting that efficiently. But with Umar, I just didn't see the transitions as fluid as I'd like to see, especially for a lighter weight class with people flying around all the time.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And then one other thing I want to throw in there is if we're thinking about like card market implications. So there's, if I'm not mistaken, Umar is not an optic, and he doesn't have that many cards in select either, if I'm not mistaken. So if that's the case, we're looking at Prism, Donruss. I don't think he's in Donruss either, is he?
I don't think Umar is.
I don't think so. Yeah. So I mean, that's always, I always try to pay attention to that, is how many variations of a rookie are there. So if you look at like 2021 product, Brandon Moreno, he's in Prism, he's in Select. Chronicles, there's barely any. You've got like the Optic rated rookie, you have Donruss rated rookie. The same is true of Cyril Gahn. So you've got Donruss rated rookie, Optic rated rookie out of Chronicles out of 2021, but they don't have that many card variations. They're an immaculate, yeah. But so anyway, I think supply and demand, if you go back to that, it's like if Umar gets even bigger, I can see his market lighting up faster than others potentially, just because of the availability of like his cards out there. There's just not as many variations. So just some food for thought.
Definitely. I'm interested to see if sorry, I'm getting some feedback on somebody else's computer. Seems like I think it's better now. We're good. I'm excited to see if he's in Immaculate 2022 when the checklist is released, because I think there's going to be a lot of newer rookies in Immaculate that are going to really be impressive. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Yanez, right? We know Yanez is going to be in it. If Umar's in it, you know, we'll have like Patty. Can you imagine? I can't. Like, I want to believe that Panini would go, hey, you know what would be cool? If we had on-card autos of Patty, Shavkat, Tai Tuivasa, F it. Let's throw Islam in there. Let's throw Hamzat in there. But you know they won't. They're not, like, you can't have a product that is that juiced going for 450 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine?
I think it's 750 Dutch auction is what they're starting the Immaculate boxes at.
Is that photo first off the line? Or is that just
yeah? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's first off the line. Yep.
But you know what I mean? Like they always hold back.
They do.
They always hold back. And I get why they do that. And like you got to have enough chases on every product. But I also felt like with Immaculate 2021, I still love it. I thought the checklist was, for lack of a better way of describing it, relatively unappealing. They could have made it more appealing.
By far.
Yeah. And I wonder if they're going to overcorrect, undercorrect. I mean, we don't know, right? We just don't know. But if this thing has even like a simple majority of the rookie names that we want to see in there, I could see those. It could be the first product in a long time with this economy that might actually go for more than retail. But we'll see. Ooh. That's a good over-under, right? Like, is it going to go retail? I don't know.
You made a fair point. I mean, FOTL has been killing it. I mean, with Optic, with Dutch, we saw it go as low as 192, I believe. Whereas like the retail hobby boxes at the time were going for like 175, if not more. FOTL has a sort of exclusivity that people want.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really there. It's just beyond FOMO. It's like really what collectors want at the end of the day. And now I feel as though they're finally broadening up the roster to include other fighters and not just like the ones that they want to hype up about.
Yeah.
And they're making Immaculate what it needs to be, on card autos, right? We just don't want to have sticker autos. That's not why we buy Immaculate in the first place.
Yeah.
I think, not to like deviate from the subject, because I know we should get back onto talking about Imavov.
Yeah, sorry for putting the conversation in a direction.
But we need to talk about this kind of stuff because
it's coming up.
We're seeing the card market trend up in terms of the Immaculate costs per box, just the hobby box, from 400 last week to 450 this week. So if you want to score your box for just Immaculate, you might as well just pick one up right now. Or a few.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I mean, I've been burned picking up product in 22, you know, pre-release. And that kind of has made me a little gun shy. But yeah, with this one, I wonder. And then what I thought was kind of strange, and I know we touched on this with Chicken for a little bit, was they're releasing Immaculate before announcing Prism. And
yes, that's interesting.
I was talking to Little Turnit, my brother, about this, and I know everyone thought it was kind of crazy to even suggest that they're not going to have Prism, but I was looking back at the checklists for like soccer, and soccer, you could argue, is more mature in the sports card hobby than UFC, right? And it is not unheard of for Panini not to release Prism. And the reason I bring this up, so I thought it was weird that they would release another Immaculate so soon. I thought they would go for like impeccable or flawless or something like that.
Flawless would be immaculate.
You know what I mean? Like something else, like something else. But you're going back to Immaculate and you just struck out with it. Like, I mean, maybe they'll fix it and like this is their way to like patch things up. I'm just thinking like, what is their thought process, right? And anyway, like if Prism, here's my thing. Immaculate has the potential here to really course correct, which would be good for the brand. And I think it would be good for the hobby because everybody loves on-card autos, right? But then what happens if Prism doesn't come out? And we don't have to go down that rabbit hole too long, but I think if Prism does not come out because maybe they don't feel like there's enough of an extra rookie class that's delta to 2022 Prism, I could see 22 Prism hobby skyrocketing after that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's hitting like rock bottom relative to its history right now. So yeah, I know we kind of deviated, but this is about wax also. And I'm just trying to figure out like what is Panini thinking? And I'm really having a hard time figuring that out right now. But whatever it is, like we'll know soon enough and we'll see what happens. But I don't know, Jake, what do you think?
No, 100%. I think that Panini probably has this this planned out. It's probably a strategic move on their part, releasing Immaculate without any rumor of Prism. And I totally think that they could skip Prism this year or do, some other set that we haven't seen before for UFC, which would be awesome.
I want them to start skipping stuff, and maybe that makes me sound like a Grinch, but let the market catch up. I don't know. They're a company; they're not going to do it, but
yeah, they got to course correct. I mean, if they're looking for premium product, right, they got to make Immaculate solid as can be, right? They got to make sure that's like a product that we actually do want to build up to from like obviously a low level of entry is going to be always Donruss, but then we're expecting Prism to always be that sort of standard that people are going to go by.
Yeah.
But if we can't get Immaculate right, how can we go to flawless or impeccable?
Maybe that's what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see them doing this, but if they hit it out of the park and all of these rookies we're talking about, like 70-80% of the big names that we've been talking about for the last few episodes, if they get an on-card auto of these guys, like, and even Hamza or Islam thrown in there, I could see this product for that price point being something that buys goodwill with the community, because now you're selling on-card autos of everybody wants. I want some of those cards. Yeah. I know all of you guys want some of those cards, right? Everybody wants some of those cards if they have that like roster on there, right? On that checklist. And at that price point, you're getting close to Prism. You're getting like close to what these products were at release. I think then you start getting the collectors going and saying like, okay, we see you, like you're looking out for us. But I mean, there's no precedent for that recently, so I don't know if they will.
But it's sorry, I don't mean to get ahead of you. Roll, if you're going to be talking about this.
You're fine.
I mean, think about the point of entry. I mean, the three of us got into breaks. We bought boxes earlier in 2022 where you were paying $1,000 for a Prism hobby box.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And we're paying $100, excuse me, for a weight class break per spot. And then now we're paying 55 at most, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're now looking at Prism boxes going for below 400.
Yeah. Yep.
It's kind of like, this is truly a test and learn phase for Panini, but how are they truly banking on this? I feel like it's all experiment right now for what it is. And until they actually figure out how to actually navigate the market with UFC, because to be frank with you, I think you called it out in our very first episode that the casual person is purchasing cards based on personality. It's like, oh man, that guy's got that alpha mentality or Sigma male kind of like identity, or covered up in tats. Man, that guy had a rough beginning. I think that's what people are buying them off of. Well, they used to be buying them off, right? In terms of like the cards that I want to be bidding on and the cards that I want to score. And get them jammed at PSA.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And to kind of circle us back, maybe, I think Strickland with his win, that impressed me.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm not necessarily impressed with like the fact that he looks like a rock'em sock'em robot when he's moving up. And like he just never breaks that stance.
Yeah.
But what I thought was really interesting in the commentary, and I would love for you guys to push back on this if you disagree. But the commentary was, and I forgot who it was. I can't remember which of the commentators said this, but by pressuring so much with that stance and being up in their face, they are being like fighters are being put into a situation that they're not training for necessarily. There's most fighters give people more space than that. And Strickland is like up in your face. It doesn't give you enough like that comfort. And I don't know how true that is because like how much I don't know how much time he had to train Imavov to think about, but it was like just a few weeks tops.
Maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, he looks awkward, but Strickland I thought fought really well, and I loved his post-fight the post-fight interview. That was hilarious. Yeah. And then for all you guys wondering why I keep looking over my screen, it's because I'm sitting next to the wonderful Jiho here. We're live together.
Yeah. Oh, Roll, what are your thoughts about that fight?
It was a good fight. I mean, Strickland has his own style, as we know. Like Paul mentioned, he does get up in your face, and a lot of fighters in the UFC specifically, as opposed to boxing, aren't used to that type of style. They're not used to having people right up in their face, closing the distance, fighting in a phone booth. And one thing that is in Strickland's favor, of course, we didn't see this with Alex Pereira, but it doesn't allow them to generate power. I mean, a lot of the power shots are at a distance, are created in the hips. So, of course, there's hooks and uppercuts that are close range shots, but a lot of people aren't training for people like Strickland. I mean, he has a super unorthodox style. So overall, I thought it was a good fight. I like watching fights like that. Strickland, as far as his personality, I like guys that'll just go out and bang, fight anybody. I like guys who fight often. I like guys who fight just to have a fight. I like that style of fighter and that mentality. So I'm a fan. He's built a fan out of me, just even in his losses. He's willing to fight anybody.
Yeah.
And his press conferences are great.
And he is undefeated at his press conferences, right?
And by the way, guys, to stay on topic too, with we were talking, it's relevant to the rookie class of 2022, Sean Strickland. So I mean, we're not trying to pump up 2022. I'm just saying that's a pretty sweet rookie class. So.
Yeah, I think this rookie class, especially with Strickland's case, brings about an interesting point, right? We know as fans, the three of us, that anybody is, well, not anybody, but everybody will eventually lose. I don't care who you are, right? Yeah. Even if you're John Jones, you lose by a technical, like, weird sort of freak of a law, like 12 to 6 elbows, right? Whatever. But with Strickland, I kind of find it as though, like, he's actually making it all the more real to the casual fan who maybe were fans of his cards, but then saw him lose, right? And it wasn't like threw him by the side, but now they're like, hey, maybe this guy isn't all that bad, right? They're finally realizing like why they were fans in the first place. Oh, that guy.
Yeah. I like that.
But then to tell you the truth, I think at least through my amateur MMA fights or training, I'm actually kind of used to that sort of style where they just stand in front of you, maybe because the room is just flooded and it's just packed with other people sparring. But I'm kind of used to that sort of like confrontational where they'll just stand up upright with you. And it's not as though like they don't have any technique or anything like that. It's much more like, hey, let's just go ahead and just trade shots. Let's go maybe 50% with our hands, maybe 60%, but then throw our kicks at a higher percentage. So I feel as though like that sort of style is something that MMA fighters are used to actually having at the gym, but not seeing it done well transition into the cage.
Interesting. Good point. Yeah. And then we don't have to touch on this for too long, but it was good to see Danny Gay.
Yes.
In the win column again.
50K.
Yeah. That's a 20.
It's a big win for him too. I mean, Jackson's not a slouch at all.
Mhm.
He's had 20 something wins and very few losses. I think he was like 22-4 or something like that. I don't remember what his exact record was, but yeah, I mean, that's a big win for him. Dan Ige needed a win too. You back in the win column and ready to go. He looked phenomenal in my opinion. I thought he looked great.
Yeah, I agree. And he was another guy where I was moved by his post-fight speech.
Yeah.
With Lee and everything. And so I think that was a good start to the year for sure.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that one.
All right, then I guess let's go and talk about UFC 283 this Saturday.
Yes.
Let's talk about the fights. You want to get right into the main card with my favorite Scotsman, Paul Craig versus Brazil's Johnny Walker.
This is an interesting one.
What are you guys thoughts about?
I don't know.
That's what
And you know what? Whenever
it's everybody's response, Paul. Don't worry about it.
When I react like that, that means I'm gonna really enjoy the fight.
Yeah.
Because Paul Craig,
it's a head scratcher for sure.
He's a head scratcher, and Jiho and I, we were talking about this role before you came on, but it was like Paul Craig. A lot of folks, at least when the puck first came out and they were getting his cards, they were like, "Okay, he's going to be a champ." And I was like, "I don't know." I always felt like his last few wins before his last loss, where he pulled guard the whole time in a 3-rounder and looked winded. I kind of lost a little faith there. I don't know, but everyone is allowed to have a bad day. And we talked a little bit about like sometimes we don't know if people got injured in training camp.
Yeah.
We don't know if people, for whatever reason, couldn't go full steam with training camp because they're not going to disclose it because they don't want to get pulled from the card. And it's probably because they're not making all that much most of the time.
Yes.
And especially if you're getting pay-per-view points, you're not going to pull out of that fight card.
No.
And you might not disclose some information, even if you're not. So I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but I thought how he fought that fight, and I can't remember where that was off the top of my head, but
Volkan Ozdemir.
Okay, yeah, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was just underwhelmed, and he kind of pulled victory out of the jaws of defeat the last few other times. So I still think he has a lot of skill, obviously, right, to pull off those wins the way he did before. And then Johnny Walker, we know he was kind of on a skid, and then his last win was pretty decent.
Yeah.
And I still want to know why he got kicked out with all of his gear on. That was wacky. But I lean towards Johnny Walker here because I could see I don't know. It's Craig was not on the offensive, and we saw Walker willing to do that even after his losses. So to me, that says that he has a lot more heart, maybe not heart's not the right word. He has more confidence in himself, more than I thought he would going into his last fight. So he's got the momentum behind him. But I don't have as much of a technical assessment, so I'll defer to you guys for that maybe. And I know Jiho, you appreciate a lot, especially his ground game and everything. So
yeah, I mean, look, before I want to definitely hear Jake's opinion as well because he is a jiu-jitsu just like I am. I think he's far more qualified because he's been holding the purple belt longer. So what I think about with Paul Craig is that, to be frank with you, I think this guy has a chin, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he may not have all the hair follicles, and I know that he just got a hair transplant, but you know what? This guy actually does know how to actually take a punch and actually return fire, but he's not confident in doing so. Mm-hmm. What I find him in similarity with is Rodolfo Vieira. Rodolfo Vieira against Chris Curtis. Right? Chris Curtis had, I don't know, 50,000 goddamn shots from Rodolfo Vieira, my hero from the IBJJF circuit. Mm-hmm. But Rodolfo Vieira was able to take punches from Chris Curtis, right? The same Chris Curtis who was able to end his next fight, right? And I feel as though Paul also packs that sort of power and also that sort of constitution as well, but it hasn't been tapped into. He's talked about it. I was like, hey, now I found this new love for striking. But like you had mentioned, I don't know I know you and I were talking about his ugly shots when he was going against Vulcan. I don't know if that was premeditated in terms of a double leg automatically to a Ashigarami, right? Um, I don't know. It's interesting. I feel as though like I still see Craig pulling off a sub in the second round because of his durability. And to tell you the truth, Johnny Walker to me is still a bit sloppy.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Johnny's still a little bit sloppy as far as his technique, but I feel like I think he changed camps, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure who he's with right now, but it seems as if we saw a different Johnny Walker in his last fight.
We did. Yeah.
And I think he can continue that, staying in the win column as long as he mixes up his, his grappling and his striking. I think if he doesn't let his hands down and doesn't let himself get into those situations, I think he's definitely a contender. And I think Paul Craig, I mean, obviously he's a great jiu-jitsu, competitor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like you said, maybe he does have that untapped potential as far as striking and being, having the ability to take a punch is a huge thing in the UFC. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Paul Craig. I think that Johnny Walker, I'm going to go with Johnny Walker on this one. I just have more faith in Johnny Walker. I think.
Remember what happened last time, Roll? You and I agreed.
Yeah. I think he just has more tools in his arsenal than Paul Walker.
I'm getting deja vu with
Paul Walker. I just
Bryce
said.
Mitchell,
I'm sorry,
man.
Paul Craig.
Yeah. No, I got
Paul
you.
Walker.
Hey, we can't. We also have to So I'm offering in a lot of these situations where I don't know as much about the technical aspect of BJJ and stuff. Right.
You're part of this group for a reason.
Yeah. So I'm offering that. Right. And so I don't always know exactly how things are going to go and how they're going to match up on the ground necessarily. But one thing I think that we have to talk about for all of these fights that we're about to talk about where it's relevant is this fight is in Brazil. And that crowd is not friendly. That crowd is not friendly. And I think Johnny Walker, I don't know. I feel like it's going to get some oomph. It's going to have some oomph.
Yeah. I think he has more confidence now than he used to.
Hey guys, this is the same Johnny Walker in his celebrations would knock himself out and then he would be out because of a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
The worm.
Oh, God. That's fair. That's
Right?
fair. Yeah, I mean,
I just don't know. Johnny Walker, I mean, he seems more mature, but then I just feel as though like the beast is sometimes too much where he can't handle. All of a sudden, he'll just be prone to injury. He'll just knock himself out.
Yeah, I
don't know.
If anybody knows what happened with him getting kicked out with his gloves still on and stuff, walk in the streets of Vegas, leave a comment. I need to know. I need closure. How does that happen?
But speaking of power, let's move on to the next fight. It's a women's fight between Lauren Murphy and Jessica Andrade. Who do we have?
That's a hard one too.
Dude, wow, I'm surprised you would say that's a hard one.
Yeah, well, I'm a believer in Lucky Lauren though, so you got to take that into account.
Okay, wait, you got to break it down for us. Why you're a fan of Lauren Murphy?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. I've been a fan of hers. I've been a fan of watching her fight since early COVID. I know she had a fight back in 2020, and I was just impressed by her performances. Every time I watch one of her fights, it's fun to watch, and that's what I like in a fighter. She's fun to watch. I don't know. I don't know why I like her, but I'm a fan.
She is durable. She'll take in shots, right? She has that that indomitable will, right? I'll give you that. But I feel as though Jessica, she's a powerhouse, man. I'm not, aside from Rose Namajunas and that crazy WWE move that she pulled off on her, she just has she's training now in the States. She has a better conditioning program. I feel as though that we're going to see a lot coming from Andrade. And yes,
I would agree with that.
The Brazilian crowd is just going to hype up that energy and she's going to feed off of it. I mean, she was a champ, right? So it wasn't the prettiest fashion either.
I totally have faith in Andrade as well. I think that Andrade is the better fighter. But I never turn my back on Lauren. I just think that she's She's always full of surprises.
I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I don't feel qualified enough, really.
She's won some big fights.
If I had to throw a dart, I would throw it on Andrade, just because of like that one submission win that she had. That was impressive. But yeah, like recent one. What was it? Like the first standing.
Oh, what was that? A head arm?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was really impressed by that.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know enough about their backgrounds to really have a good assessment here.
Right. No, but that's a good call out. A standing head arm is very hard to just like even get in the first place. Especially these trained fighters are used to framing away. They're used to like using their elbows, their what do you call it? Their what is this? Forearms. Thank you. Using their forearms.
It's the arm shin.
The arm shin between the head and the elbow. But they're used to actually using their frames, just like in jiu-jitsu is applicable to Muay Thai. It's like they're used to pushing and creating distance. So to have Jessica Andrade like submit her opponent that way, it was fantastic. Yeah. All right, now let's go on to the next fight. I feel like Jake, you're going to be at a crossroads. We got Gilbert Burns versus Neil Magny.
I tap. No comment. No. Yeah, this one hurts a little bit for me. This one's gonna hurt.
All right. Should we start with Paul then, or do you want to go first?
All right. I have a long-winded explanation from my perspective.
Ooh.
And okay, it all starts with Max Griffin.
What is so bad?
Let me connect the dots. So I fell in love with Max Griffin because two reasons. He is another card head. He loves sports cards.
Yes.
And he comes on the UFC sports card streams and he's friendly to everybody.
All the respect to the guy.
Yeah. And he's always, responding to people. He loves the community. His Instagram is all memes. It's really funny. Slightly controversial at times. I like him. I like the guy.
I do too. Great guy.
He's a good guy. And he was fighting on the Jan versus Rakic original fight card that was in Columbus. And then that fight got canceled, but I had already purchased tickets to that fight. So I went there with little Turnit and we had a blast. And we saw Max fight. We thought he did great. And we thought he beat Neil Magny in that fight. Now we were we were watching it live. So our perspective is a little bit different. And I haven't really gone back and watched it, the recording or anything, but we thought Max got robbed a little bit, or it was closer than the scorecard indicated. You could disagree with that. And we were biased, of course. Right. So I thought he deserved that win over Neil. Now, Gilbert Burns, I thought he was a monster against Khamzat for surviving the punches that he did and to come back from getting stung and to have that power. I mean, I know, so I'm of the opinion Khamzat won that fight. I rewatched it and every single time I come back 2-1 Khamzat. Now, that was like a humbling moment for Khamzat, many would say. But I think it was also his coming out party that okay, he's the real deal. It's not a fluke. And I think for the market, this is I'm not trying to be biased here. I'm just saying for the card market, Khamzat's value, and we know how important that is to the 2021 market and for speculators in general that are still in the UFC card market. If Gilbert destroys Neil Magny, that will make Khamzat's win over Gilbert age like a fine wine. And I think there's implications for that. If Gilbert loses, then you'll see people that maybe aren't as close to fighting, they're not following every single thing, right? They might dump a little bit of Khamzat cards because they're oh, okay, he couldn't take him. Anyway, I just think that's kind of how speculators think, right? It's MMA math. Makes sense. You hear about that on the forums, right? Okay, well, this guy and this guy. So anyway, I think if Gilbert wins decisively and gets a knockout and just destroys Neil, I think that will actually indirectly impact Khamzat prices. But then I think it will also show an uptick in Gilbert cards as well. Because we saw that after the Khamzat loss, a lot of people were new fans. And I mean, I don't follow him that much, but I was a fan after that for sure. I mean, the guy had heart. I think he has a lot of power. A lot of power. I mean, he rocked, Usman for a little bit. And so anyway, I'm excited for this. On a personal level, I'm rooting against Neil. But I also think Neil brings the heat as well. Like he's proven that he's been around for a long time. He brings like a lot of perseverance and grit. So anyway, that's my thought on that.
That's good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. I think that Magny, I mean, he's had the most wins in welterweight history at 20.
Yeah.
We're looking at a guy who said, you know what, I want to take that new prospect on, aka Shavkat Rakhmonov. Right? It didn't end up well for the guy, but you know what? He's like, hey, let me try to. I just want to fight because I'm a fighter, and that is commendable, right? Yeah. And I appreciate that, especially with Neil Magny's age, and he's a pretty savvy guy, right? Right before even the Shavkat fight, he was on a pretty good. Like, I mean, he was making some wins happen, but with Trevino, right? That guy, he's 35, 36, I think, maybe 37. But that guy only gets, he hasn't slowed down, right? And I feel as though, like with him, he was originally a jiu-jitsu guy who started off as a lightweight, who has moved on to the welterweight division, right? With Henry Hooft on his side, his striking has increased. Like I mean, if you're watching the Hamzat fight, like you had mentioned, he started to make reads. As soon as Hamza was maybe into the second round, he was able to slip. He was able to read the jab and know when to throw that cross. His timing was on point.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening in his 30s, like in his getting to his mid-30s. And that was amazing. So what I see is that we have a more refined Burns. There's a reason why we call him Turnit in Portuguese. And I feel as though that we will see a stoppage in the second with Turnit overcoming Magny. And I know that's death to your ears right now, and I don't want to wish.
No, not at all. Not at all, because I have a similar prediction. For anyone that doesn't know, I used to train with Neil at Torres about 10 years ago. So I am definitely a Neil Magny fan. Always have been, even, in the market. Doesn't have the hottest card market of all time, that's for sure. But yeah, no, he's a great guy. He'll fight anybody. So the reason that this is such a good fight is because either one of these fighters will fight anybody.
Yes.
If you line them up against any fighter in the welterweight division, they're always game.
Always ready.
And that's why I love these fighters. I love Neil. I love Gilbert. But similar to you, Jiho, I think that what's going to happen is I think Gilbert's power and his technique is going to be a little bit too much for Magny. As we see in most of Magny's fights, he is slightly more timid than Gilbert, and Gilbert's willing to take more chances. And I think that's going to hurt Neil in the long run. I think Gilbert's going to go out there swinging, and I think he's going to put it all on the line like he always does. Magny does a lot of cage control type things, a little bit of wrestling, but Gilbert's grappling is so strong that I just don't see I don't see Neil in his current state. I don't see him being able to out-grapple Gilbert Burns, and I don't see anybody in the welterweight division being able to out-grapple Gilbert Burns. As we saw with Hamzat, I mean, his takedown defense was impeccable. He took him down one time and was able to get right back up to his feet, basically.
Yes.
So I don't see Magny's wrestling being an issue for Gilbert Burns at all, and I don't see Magny's striking being powerful enough to take Gilbert out.
No.
Whereas I see Gilbert's striking power enough to take Magny out. And it does hurt me to say that, and it does hurt to even watch this fight, but it's good. There's a reason why. I want to see these two fight because I want to see who the victor is going to be. And I think in this one, it's a little bit more emotional because I love both of them. But, I mean, at the end of the day, one of them is going to walk out with their hand raised. So yeah. I'm going with Burns on this one, and similar to your prediction, I think it probably will be in the second round or somewhere later, in the second or third round, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, look, Magny 6'3", right?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the most strength compared to someone who's more compact, who is 5'11" in Turnit Burns. So I see him using more of actually more strafing, more lateral movement. And then getting into the pocket, right? He's not going to go straight up to Neil.
No.
Say, oh, here I am, right?
Yep.
And so Turnit, that guy is just, and he will take shots after shots.
Yeah,
You're like, I was like, Hamza should be knocking this guy out, but
Yeah.
he simply wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And he almost did in the first round. I mean, he tagged him pretty good and laid him on his
yeah,
ass.
he did.
Yep.
So, you know, and another interesting element is, and I don't know if you guys saw this article, but I guess Magny had trained with Hamzat recently and said that he's the real deal and that you know, he's no joke. So that's another added element. I mean, if Burn, like you said with Paul with the MMA math, there's no precision in MMA math, but at the same time, if Magny's struggling with Hamzat in training, I think that Gilbert's going to give him a really hard time also.
Yeah. And you sprinkle like sprinkle in the fact that he's in Brazil, and
Yes.
I feel I could see Burns' ego bruised after the Hamzat loss.
Yeah.
Like he was not happy with the decision.
No.
And I feel like he's got a lot to prove, and he's at home.
I mean, think about every time he's lost, right? Whether it was Usman or whoever else it was, right? Like, it just gave him more infuriated, and he made sure he made his statement the next fight.
Yeah. Someone's gonna have to pay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like this is one of those sports where home crowd advantage makes a big difference because you've got like survival instincts kicking in, you know? And I'm not saying other sports don't have that, but other sports, like you don't have a guy threatening to choke you out. All right. Like it's a little different, right? And it might give you that extra oomph, you know, the extra power, the extra like killer instinct. It's a lot of hand waving crap that I'm talking about, but I just do feel like fights in Brazil are different.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that because I'm kind of interested as to what Magny's game plan is for this fight. If he knows if he doesn't have the power advantage, he has a height advantage, obviously. So what is he gonna do? Play the distance game where he's gonna flick his jab out, throw in some T kicks here and there. I mean, it's kind of like, how is he gonna win? What are his keys to victory? I don't know.
I have a weird question to ask. Do we think this is actually a really weird, like, don't judge me for this, but I'm just throwing this hypothetical out there. Can we make an equivalency between, in terms of fighting styles and personality and size and packing punches and like with compact design, right? Michael Chandler relative to Burns. And the reason I say that is because Chandler's got some wrestling. He's strong, right? He doesn't have like the same necessarily like the same credentials from like a submission standpoint, right? But he packs power. And I feel like Gilbert might come out like Mike Chandler comes out in round one, which is full steam ahead, crazy, kind of like living in the moment. That's my question is, do you think that there's some equivalency to that? Maybe because it's going to be in Brazil and he has a chip on his shoulder. And if the answer is yes, because Chandler, you could plan against, right? Like we saw Dustin, Charles, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I don't know. Shoot this down if this is a dumb comparison.
No, I mean, Jake, you want to take this or you want to go first?
Go ahead.
All right, so
I want to hear your perspective on this too.
I can see the similarity in terms of how they're both physical and how they're both grapplers by nature. However, where I need to see the distinction is that Chandler is stronger in his weight class, right? He has he's been champ before in another organization. But where I do see a difference is that Burns is a smarter fighter.
Fair enough.
I think that like with Chandler against Poirier in his last event, Poirier even mentioned like had he thrown just straights down the middle after those violent hooks, he would have beaten up Poirier. But with Burns, he actually knows how to adapt. He knows how to throw in the variety because he works not only with Henry Hoof, but with better and smarter. Actually, they actually know. Let me take that back. I just realized they actually do come from the same camp. Wait. Is it Henry Hoof? Because I thought Gilbert Burns, is he from ATT or from the other camp?
I don't remember.
I forget right now. Because I just realized that Henry Hoof, I think, is actually training Michael Chandler, right?
Oh wait, they train together.
They train together. Okay,
that's right. I remember watching videos of Gilbert training with Michael Chandler.
Thank you. So they actually do train together, but then one implements a better sort of tactical game plan than the other.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I was asking this too is not because of just the fighting styles, but is it because of the situation, can we see Gilbert throwing caution to the wind and being like, I'm going to go out there and put on a show?
No.
He's not going to do it, right?
He's not the I'm the juggernaut bitch kind of guy.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. Gotcha.
that's more like who is it? Johnny Walker, or used to be Johnny Walker, in the previous fight before Jan Kutalaba.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
because if he did do that, then you can make an argument for a game plan of like, okay, I got to survive round 1. Round 2 is a different story. Pick my spots, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
But roll
Yeah, I think Gilbert's a tactician. I think he's more precise and coordinated than Chandler, in my opinion, from what I've seen from both of their fights. I think Chandler's far more emotional than Gilbert. I think Gilbert goes in with a plan. He executes that plan, and I think he's going to exploit Magny in the grappling sector. I think he's going to be all over him. I think he'll probably set up shots. He'll strike, set up a shot, and I think really he's going to just have him on the ground, similar to how Shavkat did. I mean, Shavkat looked for an opportunity to grab his legs and, took him down and really just rode him the entire fight until he found a submission. And I think it's going to be a similar game plan for Gilbert.
I seriously, how you and I roll, we're thinking about how Burns actually had a chance against Shemaev.
Yeah,
I think that Burns actually has a decent shot against Shavkat.
I think so too,
because of his jiu-jitsu style. I don't mean to stray with this conversation, but not many people are actually at that point to understand how not to just apply submissions, but understand reversals through jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Burns does that beautifully, knowing when to actually go for the reverse, right? Because he also implements a wrestling game plan as well. And when you see that sort of back control from it, where he could actually reverse the position, take the back, and just push off, I mean, shit. How many times do we actually see that from a BJJ guy or a BJJ girl at that, or woman? We don't see that often. So,
you know what? If you guys don't mind, this brings me to a good point. I think, at one point we see these Dagestani fighters coming in and using sambo, and that was like the secret weapon.
Yeah,
I think what we're going to see in the near future is good scramblers are going to be the guys that are winning fights.
Yes.
It's all about the scrambles and the ability to come out on top, because we're seeing that in these grappling exchanges where, as we saw with Arman and his name, Demir Ismagulov. It's the grappling exchanges. It's the thinking on your feet and thinking under pressure, and the scrambles are really what's going to make a difference in a fighter's career at this point. And that's to counter a lot of the sambo attacks from a lot of these Dagestani fighters. I think the keys to victory, in the coming years are going to be in the scrambles.
Right. I mean, I see people implementing more of like controlling the head, knowing how to use a wizard properly, not just with your arms, but with your fucking shoulder,
Yeah.
But the one Dagestani fighter that kind of like throws a wrench to that sort of thinking is Islam with his foot trips, right? So not to get into that, but if you have any thoughts, just let me know. Otherwise, we could go into the next fight. Any thoughts?
Any thoughts from me or from Paul?
Yeah,
for anybody?
Either one of you guys. We're just having a good discussion. That's all.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I love the technical aspect of it and how it. We could talk about how it applies to cards all day, but you and I could talk about the technical aspect of these fights all day long.
Yeah. So. All right. Let's go into the next fight, which seems like, holy shit, what are we at? Number 56 or number 89? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Davidson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno.
Yeah.
Who I believe, I don't know, maybe 93. I don't know.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, for what it's worth, I love hearing you guys talk about the technical stuff. Like it's a great way for the rest of us to learn about that,
I appreciate it. I mean, we're still novices, but I'll speak for myself. Yeah. I don't know, guys. I'm kind of tired with Davidson versus Brandon. I'm like, how many times are you guys gonna fight?
I said the same thing.
Pantoja should have been up there. Why isn't Pantoja up there? We have Kai Kara-France. We have Brandon Royval. We have Alex Perez. I don't know about Royval, but guess what? Pantoja took care of those two guys and ended them.
Yep.
He actually choked out Moreno with a RNC. How is he not in title contention? Is it because he's not as marketable? He's just a quiet guy and just gets his shit done? I guess that's why. Maybe.
It happens. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a card I need to show you, by the way, Jiho. Make sure to remind me after the stream.
I think Brandon wins.
Oh,
I think I love Brandon, man. I'm biased. I love watching Brandon fight, and the Kai Kara France was a good fight. I thought Kai was getting momentum.
yeah.
And then the kick happened. And frankly, I think like the last fight where Davison took it on points, decision, I thought Brandon actually won that fight. That was my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm ready for this to be over. We were talking about like Davison's persona and all that kind of stuff. And I still think he's a killer. I think he's a very violent human. I loved watching him fight. But then the Brandon series kind of soured me a little bit with the weird sort of heel angle that he was trying to play.
God of War turned evil.
Yeah. I just feel like Brandon, like I've seen maturity in his style, and I've really like technically enjoyed all of his fights. Like I have, and he's just really likable too. He's just a likable guy. I'm hoping he wins. I'm hoping he comes out on top. But again, like this is, the fights in Brazil. I don't know. There's always that X factor, but I don't have any like deep technical analysis. We've seen these guys fight so much. I just think Brandon's a better fighter, and that's really all I got. Get it over with. I think Brandon takes it though.
I'm hoping Brandon wins to just end the saga at this point. I'm over it, and I feel like at this point, if Figgy wins, do they do a 5?
Please, God, no.
You know what I'm saying? Like at this point, if Brandon wins, we can just call it quits. Like game over.
It's the ending.
May the best man win.
Wants
this is the reason why the flyweight division won't be fun to watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking anything away from the pedigree of either one of those fighters because they are definitely championship material. But how many times do we have to watch same fighters go at it again?
That's
right?
Fair.
Give the other guys a chance, man.
It's just like, come on. I think that Pantoja, like I mentioned, deserves a shot. But I know that Figueiredo, was it yesterday or the day before, sometime this week, had mentioned that he's having trouble cutting weight to fly. And that he only will move up to bantam if Henry Cejudo isn't champ.
Wow.
And so the reason why is that Davison actually trained with Henry for a while now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, with Henry Cejudo still in question with the whole thing with Aljamain Sterling and how Aljamain has like a torn bicep and delaying the fight until like April or something. We'll see if that actually happens, number one. But yeah, I believe in Brandon Moreno. I want to see him win, but I think we're all just tired.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. You want to see something else? Yeah. I was impressed. This is random as hell, but I was impressed by Amir Albazi in this last win.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's coming up. Yeah. Let's just see the. So I think we all agree the universe needs Brandon to win so that we can see the flyweight.
I want to see Amir Albazi. I want to see Mateus Nicolau. I want to see Sandor Pantoja. I want to see someone do.
All right, Jiho, I got to show you now. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh,
you got the rookie card?
You know who I love?
Yeah, it's out of 25. It's the camo.
Why do you have to do this to me right now?
Oh,
I know. I had to. I couldn't wait. I had to show the stream. I wanted everybody to be able to see the rookie Pantoja.
Why you gotta slap me, man? Why you gotta slap me? Over the
I don't know. Maybe you'll get it one day. You know me. I'm generous.
Hey, for what it's worth, too, with flyweight. Sorry, it's a little tangent, but I was big on Sumudaerji, and then Matt Schnell took him out. That fight was crazy.
But then what happened?
Oh my goodness, dude.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, Schnell showed heart. Right?
That was amazing.
Holy shit.
That's another one of those.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that fight was
that New York fight.
And I mean, he lost his next one, right? But I think the more people get into the sport and they don't just watch like a few fight nights or a few UFC events a year, they will see more like just drama like the Schnell Sumerderji fight. And then what ends up happening is you start to become a fan of somebody because of what they've shown you in the ring, in the octagon. And then they lose, but you're like, yeah, they lost, but whatever. Like, I remember that fight that he had, and he got me as a fan. And all of a sudden, like, you're realizing, like you said earlier, Jiho, everyone's going to lose at some point. Most of them will. Right. Almost no one is undefeated, and that's okay.
Look, if Figueiredo versus Moreno was like Gaddy versus Ward, what an awesome trilogy that was, right? It's not that at all.
Should we move on to the next one, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Actually, before we Jake, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just saying I in the card community specifically, I want it to be okay for a fighter to lose. I want people to have that in their mindset that it's okay for a fighter to lose.
Yeah.
Like take Bryce Mitchell, for example. Goes on a 15 fight winning streak. Loses one fight, everyone's like, "Oh, this guy, I thought he was good." It's like, dude, it's Ilia Topuria. It's Ilia Topuria of all people. Like the other best guy in the division, basically, other than Mobzar, obviously, because we'll see what happens with him. But it's like I just want it to be normal for a fighter that's on a 15 fight win streak, undefeated, like Sean Brady, for example, loses to a guy like Bilal Muhammad of all people.
Yes.
Another great contender in the welterweight division, and all of a sudden Sean Brady's a slouch. It's like, no, that's not how this works.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, how many interviews have we actually been through, the three of us combined, where we didn't get the interview? It's just like, that's where the example is realistic to us, because how many times have we put in effort, we try to accumulate the experience, education, and just like the drive to actually be successful in our interviews. But sometimes it doesn't matter for the best, or maybe for the worst. It doesn't matter. We progress forward.
I agree. And I think it's one of those things where with time, as the sport grows more and more, it'll happen naturally. And I think another probably reason that we see this so much now is because I was not a big UFC card collector or a big UFC fan prior to COVID. And I always liked it, but I was just never really super into it. I had other interests and things going on, right? But as I got into it, I started to appreciate more and more fighters. I started appreciating more and more different, fighting styles and resumes. And you start understanding that people are going to lose, and it's okay. Yeah. And but that only happens if you truly enjoy the sport. And I think what was happening probably was there was a lot of people coming in. I have no data to back this up, but I'm throwing it out there anyway. It's intuition. It's intuition, and you had a lot of speculators and speculative money coming into cards, and people were looking for other opportunities. They were looking at F1. They were looking at soccer.
Right.
They were looking at UFC. They're like, okay, these other markets, I can't afford to speculate on some of these big cards because the prices are so steep. Let me go look at and try to strike gold somewhere else. And it's easy to look at an undefeated record and think this guy's the next coming. And what plays into that?
So simplistic.
Yeah, but the promotion plays into it.
Yes.
Right. So when they pump up fights, they're selling it like that. They're like, this guy's undefeated and all this stuff. I mean, they all are until they're not. But you don't know how good they are until they lose that one time, right?
And how they actually accept defeat.
And how do they come back?
It? Yeah, exactly.
Like Charles Oliveira. I love Charles. I have one of our next shows where we show off like the weird kind of cards that are not necessarily worth a lot. One of mine is a Charles card from like 2012 Bloodlines, I think. And I love that card, man. And it's just so cool. But anyway, Charles went through crap to get where he is. I love him. Francis went through crap.
GSP went through crap.
A lot of these guys did. But a lot of people, they weren't there for the ride. They look at the record and they're like, oh, he lost a lot. It's like, dude, you're missing the whole movie. like you skipped to the end and like, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so I think it'll happen over time. It's just that we were in this weird bubble where there was so many people in the card market that weren't necessarily doing deep dives. They were spread too thin across the board. And lucky for us, a few people decided to stay, right? and that's good. But anyway, I think it's something that will change over time.
But one fighter we got to make sure that we talk about right before the actual main fight is Shogun Rua.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Wow, what a legacy that guy has just made for himself, and for us to be just fans of the sport since Pride. I mean, if you're watching the UFC embedded clips, Davison Figueiredo, like he gave his utmost respect to Shogun Rua because, in fact, I think he was born in 1993, if I'm not mistaken, right? And wow, it's incredible to think about how far we've gone from just even the days of Pride all the way to where we are right now. And he's going to be retiring, supposedly, I hope so, right after his this fight that he's going to have at UFC 283, where it's going to be the last fight in the preliminary bout. And I hope that he gets sent off with a win, the W, because he deserves it.
Dude, I really hope so.
I hope so too.
I totally agree with that.
E-Bars back in the day were nasty.
Yeah, just such a huge legacy. And he's another guy that just wasn't afraid to lose. He just put it all out there all the time.
He absolutely wasn't afraid to lose. In fact, if you're a fan of fighting, watch Shogun Rua versus Antonio Nogueira Little Nog, not the big Nog.
Yeah.
Pride #1. Or I think it was for some sort of a Pride belt or for this championship, maybe for a GP. It was crazy. The things that they would actually put through.
I gotta watch that.
Put through.
Yeah, it was Grand Prix, I think.
Yeah, it was a GP event. Yeah, but it's he's going against a fellow Brazilian, so we'll see what happens with that. And before we talk about Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill, we got Thiago Moises that we kind of gleaned over. My mistake. What do we think about that fight? About if you guys know anything about Melquizael Costa?
I don't know much about him.
I don't know either.
No, nothing.
He's got red hair in his picture.
Well, let's have to keep an eye on that because he obviously is a rookie, and we'll have to see how well he does.
I'm looking at his count.
Mm-hmm.
One moment. Sorry, guys. I'm just looking this up. Scott, he likes interesting hairstyles, is what I'm seeing. Which is kind of, as a Bulls fan, I appreciated Rodman. So,
oh yeah,
that's interesting to me.
You and I both.
We know that Thiago Moises has actually lost to Joel Alvarez, a Spaniard, right? A Spaniard, but he's won a few already, but I don't know about his opponent.
He's only really lost to good opponents, to be honest, like Islam.
Right. And I think he won
Neil.
the third or second round against Islam, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe.
I'm not sure.
I can't remember, but his opponent has been fighting for a while. But none of this is like. It's all like local promotions and stuff.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens. Actually, excuse me. He went to round 4 with Islam, so I think that's the reason why I wanted to call this guy out, because I know he fought with Bobby Green, and from the looks of it, also Michael Johnson, who I believe needs and deserves a card. I don't know why.
It's weird. I don't know.
Beyond me right
Sometimes
now.
There's some people that haven't fought in ages. You're just like, I don't know what's going on.
Right. Okay, not to stray away anymore. Let's talk about Teixeira versus Hill. What are your thoughts?
I'll go ahead. I don't know if this is controversial or not. I'm going to go right off and say that I think Glover is going to win by a landslide.
I think so too.
A landslide?
I think so too.
A landslide victory. I think he wins in like the second or third round. I think he just out-grapples him easily with no issue.
Are you talking about grappling in terms of stand-up, or are you talking about like
both
to the floor?
I think Jamal's got power in his hands, but I just don't think the technique is. I think Glover's dealt with it. I mean, if you fight Yuri Prochazka and you're doing that well, to where basically you won the fight. If you didn't get rear naked choke, you would have won the fight. I just don't see him having any issue with Jamal. I mean, Jamal's got power, but I watched some of his grappling footage, some of his training footage, and I think that there's such a disparity between Glover's grappling ability and Jamal's grappling ability that I just don't see him being an issue at all. I think that he waits for Jamal to get a little bit more tired. As long as he can dodge the shots, I think it's an easy victory for him. I just think that he's able to get on, catch him slipping and get in on the inside and shoot for a double or take him down in some way. I know he's got that sneaky treetop single that he uses. He goes and shoots for that single and uses that treetop and puts the guy on his ass. And I think that that's going to happen with Jamal. And I think Jamal's going to have no answers on the ground.
For those who don't know a treetop, would you mind explaining what that is?
Yeah, so you go in for a single leg, and instead of like running the pipe like you normally would, if nobody knows what that means, or whoever doesn't know what that means, it's kind of where you would get your I don't know how to explain this exactly. You go in for a single leg takedown. If you don't know what that is, look that up on YouTube, and you would at that point kind of lift their leg straight up in the air to where they kind of just fall straight back. It uses their own weight against them, sort of. Kind of hard to explain, but look up treetop single leg or something of the like on YouTube, and you'll find it. But yeah, Glover has an ability to do that, and he did it against Yuri several times, and I think that Yuri's it's going to be kind of a similar fight, I think, but I think Yuri had more answers on the ground with his athleticism. I think Jamal's he's not the same type of athlete as Yuri. And I don't think he has as many tools in the stand-up area either. I think really what's going to happen is, in my opinion, I think Glover's not going to have any issue with Jamal Hill.
I agree 100%, and I'm going to one-up your controversial take by saying Glover finishes him in round 1.
Wow.
And I just, as you guys were talking about, rewatched the very short Paul Craig versus Jamal Hill fight. Glover is going to destroy him. Like, Glover made Jan tap so fast, and Jan's not a slouch. And Glover is like this walking
tractor,
like Gollum, man. Like,
I don't get it.
Earth, dude. It's like solid rock, and like you've got like this psychopath, like Yuri Prochazka just destroying him, and he's like collecting dirt from the ground, patching himself up, like walking. It's nuts. It's nuts. Right. And like Paul Craig just absolutely dismantled Jamal Hill. And like, just watch that fight. Like, Jamal Hill did not know what the hell was going on the ground. Now, I mean, that was years ago, right? That was like 2 years ago, something like that, 3 years ago. I don't know. I just think I was never super big on Glover because I was like, oh, the age is going to catch up with him. It has not. No, there you go. It has not. And he's coaching Alex Pereira, and they're like sparring and stuff. And I think he takes it. Maybe that's a casual take. I don't know. But round 1.
No, I agree.
It's for Jan. It's for Jan.
MMA man.
Yeah, MMA man.
So, I just want to give a quick example of how I look at Glover Teixeira. He walks around like this humble guy, walks around all relaxed. He kind of reminds me of like a Yoda character. And do you guys remember in like Revenge of the Sith where he fights Darth Sidious? Right. And he's like walking all slow, and then he gets in this lightsaber battle and just becomes this like absolute animal. And that's how I look at Glover. Dude. He walks around like just kind of chill, relaxed, and then he gets into the cage and he just annihilates young guys. And I don't understand how it works. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's just I love it.
Learns how to move again.
You remember that smirk roll when he was fighting Yuri, and it was like a bloodbath, and the round was starting, and he just gave that smirk of death.
At that age, how do you go 25 minutes with an athlete like that? Like it just doesn't make any sense. Like physiologically, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's so crazy.
It makes me feel really bad because I'm lazy as hell and I'm way younger, and I need to do. I don't know.
Dude, he's 20 years older than I am, probably close to 20 years older than I am, and he would probably annihilate me in a fight. I'm sure he would. I mean, And of course, I don't train as much as him, and that's not my job. But being young and in shape, he'd still probably annihilate me in the first round if we were to fight. And it just doesn't make any sense. His ability to get in there and scrap is just amazing at 40 something years old.
100%. Now, whenever you and I align, we got to bring in Jiho as the combo breaker. Combo breaker.
Here he goes.
Killer instinct, right?
Yeah,
Not that I have any, no pun intended. Actually, I do. Just ask my adversaries. Well,
I like that. Taking names.
But here, okay, so Glover's card market is actually not that bad, right? I think that it could be better if he substantiated further, just like his colleague or his former training partner, Chuck Liddell, right? I'm part of the Hackelman, the Pit, and etc. I don't know. I still see Jamal Hill winning for some reason. I see him using his distance better, right? Yeah, he obviously doesn't want to be caught up against a cage. No one does. But I see that he'll actually be not as emotionally immature. Like I saw that happen with Paul Craig and how he got caught with the triangle. And yet he still had that resolve to fight through it. He didn't tap to it. And he still wanted to punch his way out. But I think we're going to get we're going to get a bit more of a person who's going to be fighting with his head more than his heart this time. And I do see maybe a TKO early in the third round by Hill.
You got me scared.
Why is that?
No, it's just whenever Jiho, I knew it. Like it's.
I just don't know. I mean, I'm a fan of Teixeira. I like the power he has.
Jiho the Oracle, man. Jiho the Oracle.
All too, but you are the Oracle. And like I said, whenever it's combo breaker time, it usually happens.
No, but okay, I was with Teixeira for a while, but
you're grappling with this kind
of. But I was thinking about how his hooks tend to take more time than like the way they should. I mean, granted, he's like 43 years old, but I don't know. It's just like it's not that his timing is up. It's just he's naturally just slower.
That's fair. I wonder too. Like you guys keep me honest here too. Jamal has fought Crute. He fought Johnny Walker.
Right.
He fought Paul Craig.
11-1.
He fought Thiago Santos. Right. If I'm not mistaken. And
did he fight Thiago Santos?
I think he did. Let me double check. It might have been earlier. No, he did. Yeah, he did last year. And like, what do all these guys to me? I don't know what weight Glover walks in at in the octagon, but I think he's heavier than all of those guys. He's a big dude, right?
Yeah.
And he lays on you. He lays on you, and it's a 5-rounder. And I don't know, he was able to even just take what Yuri. I don't know. I just feel like Glover. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I feel like that weight that he comes in at, like I just think he can cut really, really well for the weigh-ins.
I'm okay. So if I want to not attribute, like, I don't want to make this simplistic because I hate to just encapsulate what his victories have been.
Yeah.
But if you look at Jamal Hill's record, right, he's had how many round one finishes? I think 4 or 5 outside of Paul Craig.
There we go. I froze up for a second.
Oh, are you gonna?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. So Jamal Hill has had, as of late, from what I can recall, 4 or 5 first round knockouts, right? And Glover, guy's strong, but he's more of a strategist. He wants to like take apart the guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, and it depends on the strategy he wants to deploy. So that's the reason why I'm kind of siding with Hill, not because of the KO power, but how much confidence he has in his hands and his striking.
That's fair.
No, it's obviously his last name.
Hills
Hills they're built different. Angela, Jamal.
Yeah.
roll.
And look, I have nothing against Hill either. I like watching him fight. It's just I have like PTSD from the Jan fight, and like seeing him like almost defeat Yuri would have crushed my soul. I would have hated him. He would have been in my dreams. Like he would have been rent free in my head. Glover, and Yuri winning made me happy, but I also became a fan of Glover. And for me to become a fan of Glover after what he did to Jan, that's tough. That's tough. So he just earned my respect from that.
All I'm saying is that the chin has got to go sometime, right?
For sure.
We just don't know when that's going to happen with Chuck Liddell and Rashad Evans. It happened then, right?
Yeah.
When we saw Frankie Edgar getting like that uppercut from Ortega, that was nasty. It's like, who would have thought that would have happened? But I don't know. That's where I stand.
Hey, I think it's gonna be a better fight than people are making it out to be, too. Like, I mean,
it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, even if it finishes early, for it to finish early, it would have to be crazy.
Right.
Something crazy would have to happen. And then if we want to wrap things up a little bit by just talking about like market implications,
yeah,
I think win or lose, Glover's market doesn't get affected too much either way.
No.
Jamal, if he wins, all of a sudden that market I think pops.
Right.
If Glover wins, though, I see the Yuri market taking a hit. Or no, excuse me. If Glover wins, I can see the Yuri market taking a little bit of a bump as well. If Jamal wins, I see the Yuri market taking a little bit of a dive, a little bit.
I don't know. I think there's more to it because Yuri only fought 3 times in UFC.
That's true. There's like huge recency bias in the UFC. And it's like he's injured and people are going to start like, they don't want to put their like chips in on somebody who has shoulder injury.
Now, if I want to come in through the lens, and Jake, keep me honest here. If I come in through the lens of being like a casual fan, and I'm caught up with this mysticism that is a shaman, Yuri.
I love Yuri.
Right? It's kind of like, holy shit, what is he gonna do? Right?
Yeah, but is that still around?
I'm guilty. I'm the same way.
I love Yuri, or do people? I feel like people just abandoned Yuri.
I don't feel like he the samurai code, whatever he stands by. I don't know if he actually lives by that because he does some stuff which to me is just not crazy, but I don't know if it really belongs in a set of code for some sort of like, I don't know, a samurai, if you will. But what I do see is like he knows how to draw on people, right? This crazy haircut, the way he just throws his chin into like harm's way.
I love the guy. I love the guy.
Yeah, it gives a fun element to it.
Yeah.
I think it's like you're right. There is a certain mysticism behind Yuri that just like draws you to him. And it's not with like being fancy and going around and prancing around doing crazy stuff. It's just being himself and doing like weird things.
He fucking believes it.
Yeah.
He does like these like shadow, like lookaways and like off angles. And I'm just
it's
like,
just fun.
I freaking love this guy.
Just don't hire Diego Sanchez, former coach.
Oh yeah, Josh Fabia.
Fuck that guy. Oh, sorry. Did I curse? I did.
Oh, we've been cursed here.
Right.
It's okay. I specifically
It's
said
PG-13 now. It's okay.
Yeah, these are.
You're allowed one F.
They're not. I never want to feel guilty about an F bomb. So all my whatnot streams are like, they're mature audiences only, guys.
Yeah, screw that guy though.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I freaking love Yuri, man. But yeah, anyway, I do see it taking maybe a little bit of a hit because then they're gonna say like people always do this. Well, if Jamal finishes Glover and Yuri finishes Glover. And Yuri couldn't finish Glover, then that must mean that Jamal's going to destroy Yuri.
But I kind of disagree. It depends on how he wins the fight.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Like if he goes 5 rounds with Glover and scrapes by with a win, I think Jamal's market just stays stagnant or goes down a little bit, like we saw with Yuri. Like it was already so high, and then the mysticism was gone when he lost all 5 rounds. Basically, I mean he pulled out a win, but you know I feel like when people become champ, their markets just tank for some reason. I mean, look at Volkanovski and other guys.
Yeah,
it's such a weird concept. It's like guys become champion and their markets go down. It's like,
it's weird.
I don't know.
It's such a strange phenomenon.
I don't understand. Like, I know Volkanovski is pound for pound, like up there, right? I just don't understand like a guy who doesn't have KO power or like
I
sub
love
power.
Alexander, man.
That
I love
guy,
watching him.
I think he reps a lot of people who may not have like a God-given talent to end a fight, but fuck it, that guy is
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
he's game
Yeah.
all the time.
the Korean zombie fight
The real deal.
Yes,
was not even
that
a
was
fight.
amazing.
That wasn't even a fight. He was
It was
so much
slaughter.
better.
Slaughter.
And I would say the last Max fight was almost that bad. Like
Yep.
he was levels ahead. Like
And
that's how-
Holloway, even though we know him as a closer, was trying to outpoint him.
yeah, no, it's like
what?
I mean, and maybe what he's suffering from is what happens when you get that good at your craft. And we see that with Izzy. Like Izzy hasn't had a finish in a while, right? And like maybe it's like, look, I don't need to die and leave with CTE just to prove a point. Like I want to get better at what I'm doing to take as little damage as I can so I can keep fighting. The more fights I do, the more pay-per-view points I get, the more money I make. I don't. This is all speculation.
The more ice I can get around my neck, the more I can get my frosted like nails done.
Yeah, why not?
Whatever.
I heard someone have a theory too that like Izzy might end up in WWE. Okay.
Nah.
I know we're way off topic, but
yeah.
I just cringed a little bit thinking about him in WWE. I mean, it's slightly fitting. He could just be like an anime character.
Whoa, that kind of makes sense.
It's kind of nice.
When he comes out in like a
Be good for the card market.
Right.
Pokemon style haircut or something, we'll know
Oh
that.
my god. Was it hentai cheerleaders? Yeah.
Oh no, he said the H word.
But anyways, I think do you two have any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I thought that was awesome. I had a great time, guys, and I hope everyone that's listening enjoyed it. We're gonna keep trying to do these more and more and on a more regular basis. And we just had a lot of fun. I think the next show we'll talk a little bit about different styles of collecting and how each of us are different and kind of the same in some ways. And we'll show off kind of our most obscure cards. And I think we have to, at this point now, since we have our own YouTube, channel with the name, we have to start saying the generic. Remember, guys, like and subscribe. Smash that like button. And what do people say? Is that what they say? I don't know.
And don't forget to like and subscribe and smash that like button.
Yeah, exactly. Does that work?
There goes away our legitimacy of actually trying to promote our brand by making fun of it.
No, I think it's support. I think
More genuine.
It's Sean Strickland rubbing off on us a little bit.
I feel like we need to get Sean Strickland on our channel. But anyways.
Slightly?
Yeah. But I am glad that we finally have our own YouTube channel. And I truly want you guys, let us know what your thoughts are. Hit us up on the DMs. Comment below. Let us know what your thoughts are, because we just want to make sure it's engagement, right? We just don't want to make it a runaway train where we're just talking about whatever's on our thoughts and that's all there is, because that belongs in North Korea. But anyways,
and if you guys, if anybody has any suggestions for topics in the near future, make sure to comment that in the comment section so we can address that beforehand, come up with an agenda, and voice that.
Agreed.
We're always looking for different topics to talk about, so just let us know.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah, no one make any comments about how we didn't talk about the Dana slap.
Oh shit.
We'll bring that up next time. I just thought about that.
Yeah, I did too.
That was outside the octagon. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you all. Bye.
All right, guys.
Bye.